Hi Year 5, Miss Viron here, back with you for this week's maths. We're doing another revision session week because you've got to the end of the book and we're ready to see what we've learned from our time in lockdown and across the year. So I know you've recently done Roman numerals. At the top is a little reminder to try and help you. Hopefully you know that I is 1 and that V is 5 and that X is 10. You might then get confused about L, C, D and M. A teacher I used to teach with taught me this little trick to help me remember. Lovely Cadbury's Dairy Milk. They go in the order L, C, D, M. So L is 50, C is 100, D is 500, and M is 1000. You might want to use that to help you work out the Roman numerals questions on the other side of the page. Oh, that was a bad O. Let's try that again. Better. It says, the diagram shows the distance between different cities in a country. Write each distance in Roman numerals. Pause the video and have a go now. Here are your answers. You need to remember in Roman numerals that you need to treat each digit separately and work out one digit at a time. So first of all, how am I going to make 200? Well, that's 2 100s. How am I going to make nothing? I don't need anything for that. And how am I going to make 7? 5 and 2 after 5. The same for 95. How am I going to make 90? Well, that's 1 before 100, 10 before 100. And how am I going to make 5? Hopefully you can work out how each of these works. Here's another question using Roman numerals. Have a go. Pause the video now. So on these ones we need to use our thousands. 1000. 900 is 100 before another 1000. 30 and 4. Hopefully these all make sense to you. This question goes back to some of our knowledge that we used on converting units of time. I've starred the last column in the first question because it's tricky. I'm going to do the first one with you to show you, but if you're finding it too hard, just leave it and just do the first 2 columns. So you need to remember there are 60 minutes in an hour. So if I've got 95 minutes, that's one lot of 60, that's 1 hour, and there are 35 minutes left over. If I want to convert that into a fraction to work out the time just in hours, I need to say, well, there's 1 whole hour, and I need to know what 35 minutes is as a fraction of 60. So I'd need to say, well, that's 35 minutes out of 60 minutes in total. Now I need to use my knowledge of equivalent fractions. Is there a times table that 35 and 60 are both in? Then I could use it to simplify. I'm going to go with the 5 times table, and I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by 5. How many 5s are there in 35? Well, there are 7. How many 5s are there in 60? There are 12. Is there a times table that 5 and 7 are both in? No, so that's my simplified fraction. 1 hour and 7/12 of another hour. Have a go with the other questions. If you found this last column confusing, just do the first 2. I've also starred this final question because it's got lots of steps for you to get the right answer. I'll read it to you. 3 similar bags of rice are repackaged into 48 smaller packets. If there is 250 grams of rice in each packet, and 180 grams of rice left over, find the mass of each original bag. Remember, it's each original bag, not all of them together. You might want to draw yourself a picture to work out what's happening. Pause the video and have a go at these two questions. Here are the fractions in their simplest form. Next to it, I've put some other equivalent fractions that you might have got if you haven't quite managed to simplify it all the way down. And this is how I solved the bottom question. I started by drawing my 3 similar bags of rice and thinking about them being repackaged into smaller packets, and there were 48 of those, and that there was 180 grams left over. So first of all, how much was in all the packets together? Well, it's 250 grams and there were 48 packets. So I did 48 lots of 250. Then I had to add the leftover rice back on. That was 180 grams. That gave me the total of all 3 bags. The question asked though, what was each original bag? So I had to divide my answer by 3. That was a tricky question because you could have easily missed out any of the steps. Hopefully you can see how it works now though. You've also recently had a go at area and perimeter. The first question asks, there are 2 squares, really important you know some facts about squares that are going to help you work out the other sides, and 1 rectangle. If the 2 squares are identical, find the perimeter of this figure. So you need to remember what perimeter is. You also need to know, well, if I know this length, how am I going to work out this length? And if I know this length, how am I going to work out this length? Be careful, there's a tricky extra bit here that you need to work out as well. The next question says find the area of this figure. I would suggest you split the figure into 2 shapes. You find the area of each and you add them together. Pause the video and have a go. So as these were squares, if I knew that one was 12, that one must be 12, and 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 that one must be 12. And if I knew this was 12, this must be 12. To work out this bit, I knew the whole length was 15, and I'd already done 12 of them, so this part must be 3. Then I added all of my totals together. And for the area question, I split the 2 shapes, and I knew this was 4 centimetres and this was 5, so 4 times 5 was 20 centimetres squared, and this was 4 and this was 12, so 4 times 12 was 48 centimetres squared. Then I added my 2 amounts together. Make sure you said it was centimetres squared because we're working out the area. Now you're having a go at volume. Here's a formula to help you remember. Volume is length times width times height, or you could call that depth. Length times width times height. Have a go at solving these 2 questions. Question 8 I've starred. It's a tricky question. You might want to draw out a picture to help you understand it, and you might want to use bar modelling to solve it. Pause the video and have a go. So for the first question, I did 9 times 6, which is 54, and then 54 times 12. And because it's volume, you need to remember to put centimetres cubed. I did 8 times 8, and then I times it by 8, and you need to remember to put centimetres cubed. First of all, I drew a picture to help me out. I knew that the teapot was 4 times the cup, so for every 1 cup I'd have 4 lots in the teapot. And then I knew that the teapot was half the jug, so the jug must be twice the teapot. I decided to use bar modelling to help me out. For every 1 amount in the cup, there'd be 4 amounts in the teapot, and there'd be twice as many, 8, in the jug. I knew the total was 4.55 litres, so I needed to split that between all of the blocks I had here. So I divided it by 13. Now I didn't know my 13 times table, so I wrote it down the side to help me out. Once I knew that each block was worth 0.35, then I could work out how much the jug held. There were 8 blocks, so it was 0.35 times 8. The capacity of the jug was 2.80 litres. You've worked really hard today. I told you on one of the English videos a while ago that my parents were considering getting a new dog called Tilly. This is Tilly. She's definitely a lot less crazy than Thor.